You have to have that masculine spirit that is a vibration underneath all of your respect and kindness and empathy. And they just take the top parts and they become nicer, nice guys. You talked about Mozart. Mozart was so heavenly minded that he created this music of heaven, but he was a trickster and a jokester and tried to bang a bunch of girls, and he wasn't sacred in his soul. The testosterone level is measurably down from what it was 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years. And men, they can't relate to what I'm saying because they're just not horny. They're not excited when they see a girl's ass walk by. They don't even notice it.
There's no good messages for men, and that's an odd one because there's also an argument to be made that every time one of them does come along, maybe he's torn down to some extent. Welcome to the show, Zan. How are you doing, man? It's been a while since we spoke. How's everything going?
Everything's good. Yeah, I've been busy this, well, it's fall now, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've been busy, but I'm settled into my routine now. Like hanging out in Bucharest and working on my book. I got it scattered all over my floor. Finally got a chance to go back to it after weeks of staying away from it, doing other things. So
What else were you doing other than your book?
Well, I had a conference, an Amirati conference here in Romania 2 weekends ago, and we had 80 guys show up.
Amazing.
And so we had a big conference. And then the week after that, I filmed a week-long lecture series, I guess you could call it, 7 days. Had 25 guys in the audience. And it was a lecture series that I did 4 hours a day for 7 days. And I filmed it, put it in the can, and I'm going to figure out what to do with it. So I was busy.
So create first, figure out what to do with it later.
Yeah, like my impulse is to stick it on YouTube like I did with the In Search of the Alabaster Girl series, because I like that and I want people to see it. But we may keep it for internal purposes. I don't know yet. So, but it's filmed very high level production, and it was a week-long thing. And I was drinking ginger tea all day because I'm talking 4 hours a day.
Damn.
And I was worried about my boys. Yeah.
Does ginger tea actually work, or is that what I call grandma wisdom, which is well, it's intuitive. Does the ginger tea actually help the throat?
Yeah, no, that's it, man. That's the ginger tea is what the singers use, apparently. I looked it up online. So
it's a Hollywood thing. Cool, man. How's the book coming along?
Well, it's coming. I mean, it's a mess. Put it that way. But I just need to sit down with it for 5, 6, 7 hours a day and just stare at it. And so I haven't seen it for like a month and a half. I haven't looked at it. And now I open it up and I'm like, I got to get it done. So I'm going to just keep fighting for it and working on it. Like I said, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day. I'm just going to keep cranking at it. I have to. So it's not easy to write, and I don't know why. You know, I'm reading this book, and it's somebody gave me a book the other day, and so I'm not reading it, but I'm glancing through the chapters, and it's this thick, and it's about the keto protocol, right? Like how to eat keto and how to exercise. So it's a whole thing of like a lifestyle protocol, and I'm just glancing through it. It would be so easy to write that because you say you want to write about vegetables now. You know what I mean? And then you want to write about keto sticks or something, like ketone meters. And you just write an essay or a chapter on that. But the stuff I'm writing is so abstract that it's just I don't know where to put things. That's my problem. That's what I struggle with. That's why I lay it on the floor. I print out like 60, 70 pages and I spread it on the floor and I stand on it with my socks. And I look and I get a sense that this kind of this whole passage here really should move there because it's kind of similar. And I move things around visually.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just difficult to, like, it's easy to kind of see it in your mind, but when you want to translate the idea that you see in your mind onto paper, it's like there isn't a structure that you can like fit it into or a way to actually apply the conceptual to the tangible. Is that maybe
That's right.
the sort of obstacle?
Well, yeah, but it's more like to try and put things concisely, like I have a first chapter, for instance, and a second chapter, and parts of the second chapter would really, really be better in the first chapter. because it's kind of the same idea, but then the chapter gets all bloaty. I don't know. It's just I'm struggling with it. But it's layout that's bothering me.
Hmm.
Content, no big deal. I can whip out content, but it's the layout and the flow to make it so it isn't bloated, you know, and trying to get every nuance. Like for instance, you know, one thing that I show guys, for instance, when they come to me for live coaching, like I did in this last lecture series, I say, okay, I talk about subcommunication, right? How do you approach from across the room with your eyes and your smile alone? Okay. And and I demonstrate it, and the guys practice it, and it's fantastic. And they finally feel that subcommunicated feeling for the first time ever. But how do you write it so
Yeah.
that guys get it? Because there's you say this kind of things, and there's so many. Do you mean it to do it like this? No, and the spirit is this, and so you have to write it. It takes pages and pages and pages to describe what you're trying to do because it's so nuanced, and then it looks like it's all bloated. But you know, if I write something simple like I touch girls when I'm talking to them, okay, that's a very blunt thing to say, but it's nuanced in it. I don't really do that. I'm hovering, my hands are in motion, you know, and guys will start grabbing girls if I write anything like that, unless I write 7 pages or 8 pages of nuance. No, no, it's more this, and I just I struggle with it, man.
Well, that's it's. I mean, look, I think I completely understand because obviously we have to semantically try and wrap our words, which are always just cloudy, ugly iterations of the meaning we're trying to portray. The words are never a complete vehicle for the meaning that we're trying to capture, and they're incomplete, right?
Yeah,
They're innately incomplete. So trying to capture nuance in words is always going to be difficult. But that's how I
my whole thing is nuanced, right? My
yeah,
whole
of
thing is
course
nuanced.
it's nuanced.
I struggle with,
It's
yeah.
nuanced socially and like in reality, right? But as a sort of as a social structure at the moment, the idea of flirting, dating, physical attraction, sexuality is so loaded and controversial at the moment socially that it makes it, it gives another layer of
Yeah.
of difficulty to that process. But as you were talking about that, it kind of made me understand that to be maybe the realm of poetry, because I understand it to be that literature is us trying to accurately describe what we are intending to say, right? Trying to accurately envelop meaning in words, right? Words
Right.
are our way of trying to capture meaning. But with poetry, you're not trying to describe what you're doing or accurately encapsulate what you're trying to say. You're trying to create an emotion that suggests exactly what you mean without describing it at all, right? So there's certain
Right.
moods that you're able to evoke through poetry that any description of the word that mood in literature is completely unable to capture. But in poetry, everyone reads it and feels the same thing, right? They feel the same
100%. Yeah.
mood. And so I think that's why the Alabaster Girl resonated so well, is because it wasn't quite literature and it wasn't quite poetry. It was somewhere in between. You were describing certain things and making using dialogue. It was dialectic to to show the meaning and who this
Right.
person was. But at the same time, it was the realm of poetry because everyone knew what that guy was like without you needing to describe the man at the center of the book at all. You didn't want to describe him. It was
Oh,
all
there's no description at all.
yeah.
Nothing.
So it sounds like that's the realm of poetry, right?
Well, true, but you know, so like the Alabaster Girl is very kind of philosophical and abstract, I guess you could say, even though it's very, I think it's super practical. But if I'm trying to say something like reclaim your masculine edge, that can be poetically described and people get, oh, okay, that I get the sense of that. But
Mhm.
if I'm trying to say something, and maybe this is just me being complaining, if I'm trying to say something practical, like when you stand this way or look this way, look this in this direction. You know, you have to get the new. It's I'm actually saying something practical. You can poeticize it all you want, but guys are gonna be like standing going like this. You mean like this? You know, you know what I'm saying? or because I've written so much abstract and philosophical things that the second book, I'm trying to make it really down and dirty practical. And I don't mean I don't mean a book that's just do this, do that, a self-help book. It's not self-help at all. It's more, it's still going to be very poetic in my mind, but I want it to be a guy who reads it and goes, now I get it. It's like that. Because my work over the years, people, guys will read it and they think, well, I'm already doing what Zan says to do in Alabaster Girl. I'm curious. I'm complimenting women. I'm respectful. I'm trying to be funny. All these upper energy things, which are beautiful, but they don't read the bottom half of the book, which is your dark and dirty, dangerous part of you that has to also be present in your spirit. You have to have that masculine spirit that is a vibration underneath all of your respect and kindness and empathy. And they just take the top parts and they become nicer, nice guys. So I'm trying to battle against that and say, no, you're missing something. We're missing something visceral, that vitality to feel your virility, and like to tap into that, so anyway, I'm just complaining. I'm complaining because just
That's interesting.
crazy.
It's interesting that you described it like to do with the body, how there's the upper and then the lower. It's almost like you've given the heady, ambitious, dreamers version of it, and now it's about putting that into the flesh, right? Turning it into something.
It was both in the Alabaster Girl. If you read it, it's very much both. Like it's 100% of this entire chapters based on what does that feel like to love that you're a man, that God created you as a sexual creature, and you don't apologize for it. It's not toxic. It's all in there. But still, guys would, when I'm trying to really get, the first book was a book that was written by this anonymous guy on a train. It's being interviewed by a woman, right? As you know, and it's generic. There's no age. I didn't even put anything like telephones in there so that it could be read 50 years ago and could be read 50 years from now. The only technology in there is the train. So I wanted to make it time agnostic so that it was, could have been written in the 80s, could have been written 20 years from now. And it's still, so I don't have anything but texting in there, any of that kind of stuff, right? And so it is abstract, and it's a conversation with women from this guy.
Yeah.
And now the book I'm trying to write is a conversation from the same guy, still undescribed, still this, man with no name, but he's talking to men. So let's go. I'm going to tell you some secrets. I'm going to tell you some, here's some down and dirty things that this is how I view the world. You want to see it? I'll show you. So it's a very more practical and more fun and funny type of energy. But I still struggle with the philosophical bent of my writing, and I'm trying to say things succinctly in a short way, but it just gets bloated because I want to make sure I'm not in this world. I'm trying to say, no, it isn't this, because that's offensive. Like if I say something that's I make a sexual comment in a fun, flirty little boy energy way, and it's never offensive. But guys would say, well, Zan said to say this, and boom. And now they're offending people because I didn't, because they're missing the twinkle in your eye energy that they're missing something. And I've got to write that into it somehow. Or don't write it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I completely understand what you mean. I completely understand exactly what the thing in your head is. It's like, how do I write in nuance, right? Like, how do I show exactly what I mean that is outside of the purely didactic, like say this, do this. How do you write in nuance into the
so that you get the feel of not that you're standing in a certain way, but you get the feel of what it is, what the essence of the underlying spirit of it is, so that you can manifest that however you would stand or look at girls, whatever, right? You don't have to copy me, but to give the spirit, this is the essence. This is what the great seducers and the great lovers of history have always had, this trait, and they do this, and they all do it. And so you can, and to say that with a nuance, so the guy can say, I get it. So it's like this, I'm the strong silent type, and another guy's a funny type, but they can both inhabit that in their own way, as opposed to just a mimic of do this and stand like this and wink your eyes 3 times. That's the nuance. and I'll get it. I will do it. I will get it done. I will nail
I,
it.
if you can do that, then I think you. I mean that. Yeah. I don't know. It's such an interesting point because when I read the Alabaster Girl, I knew there would be people that couldn't interpret it the way that I had. Right. The first time I read that book,
Right.
it was very obvious to me that for me it was deeply practical in an odd sense. It was very poetic, but it I heard what was said and immediately I was applying it. It wasn't like it was
Yes.
immediately it was
Because you
infectious.
understood intuitively because you're already aligned with that. You're already aligned in that way. And a lot of guys are not.
Right. Well,
You've
but that's what I
never
mean.
heard
And
anything like it.
I'm just thinking for myself, for example, let's say let's generalize and say I'm a category of person and I'm in the category of person that reads the Alabaster Girl and is immediately applying the wisdom or immediately it infects me and I'm a bit more like that character, right? And
Yeah.
let's say that there's another category who would respond automatically to a different mode of communication or to a different
Right.
style of communication. But if you then change the way it's written to adapt it to that different type of person, it might lose that original.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
I can
believe
I can
you.
only write it a certain way for certain.
Yeah.
I'm writing it like the thing I write is, would I like it? Like, is that something that I would like to read? That I would like to find a book like that and read it? Then I think I'm good. And if the whole world doesn't like it or thinks it's too abstract or they don't get it, but I really like it. I mean, I want the world to like it. Don't get me wrong, of course, right? But if they don't, and I put on paper what I set out to do, then I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Agree. I agree. I don't think
Because
you
I
can.
can't change it for anybody.
Yeah.
I could have taken Alabaster Girl. It's 400 pages long. I could have chopped some of the musicality out of it and the repetition and the flow and the feel and the poetics of it, and it would be 300 pages. Could have chopped 100 pages and just give information. But then it's not. But the way it's structured itself and the way it's said is the information.
Yeah.
It is the message. Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message, right? Well, yeah, the book and the way the book sits and feels, and you as you're reading through it, and the way the sentences have a lilting quality to it, it has a musicality to it, is the message that I'm trying to portray.
Yeah. It it had all of those components. It also had something which very few books have, but it had that kind of uh elemental nature to it. Like you think with the Bible, and there's so many authors that have tried to dress their books up to look like the Bible, right? They give a black cover and gold writing,
Yeah,
and they try and
yeah.
almost give a sense to the literature that it's something that hasn't come from them, but it's come from a higher place, right? And they were the
Holding
deliverer.
this talisman in your hands is not a book.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
it's a talisman. It's very
yeah.
ritualized creation.
It's a portal. It's like a portal into another world or another
Yeah,
energy.
yeah.
And I think that was the very much the way that the Alabaster Girl was wrote. It had that quality, right? It had that quality of being.
I wouldn't compare it to scripture, but
Well, I would because I think it touches on something very elemental. Like I think it touches on a source of energy or a source of wisdom, for lack of a less kind of high and
okay, yeah.
bloated word. But yeah, I think it feels like a source of knowledge rather than an author writing his opinions about the world or telling a story. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like someone has accessed some fundamental wisdom and now that wisdom is speaking through them. And that's a quality that very, very few books, films, pieces of art across all types are able to do. Very, very few
Yes.
are able to do that. But we can all
Yeah.
Mozart creates portals. Some of Mozart's music is like there's nothing you could do. There's no change you could make. There's nothing you could
Oh,
add, nor take away, nor in any way change to make it any more perfect than it is. It has the feeling of something that is not from human mind or human hands. It feels fundamental. Like it feels like a song that was there before music.
you
Um,
know, I take that to heart, and I really appreciate you saying that. And And there's no question in my mind that me sitting trying to fight for that book um, didn't come from me. Yeah, I mean, there's, it's not something that blurted out of me. It came from. I really believe, like a lot of the artists believe, and a lot of the writers believe, that you put yourself in a receptive mode, and you sit in front of in receptivity, and something that is already out there, you capture somehow, and you bring it down into the page or onto the painting or something like that. And I really believe that it's already out there. There's nothing I wrote in The Alabaster Girl that hasn't been said before in centuries, right? But it's the way I managed to capture it in that way. And the only reason I captured it as opposed to the guy next to me is because I was in receptive mode. Yeah, it's not something that I invented or came up with, or here's something cool. You tap into something, and I really believe that, and I cannot not believe that. And all the scientists will say, well, that doesn't make any sense. I get that, and I'm very scientific minded, but at the same time, you have to believe that. I mean, you look at the cave paintings that are 40,000 years old, where they put handprints and buffaloes on the wall. Did they have muses? Were they inspired? They thought, oh, I'm going to make a nice handprint today. And I was thinking about it last night at 3 a.m. and I couldn't sleep. And I'm going to put this handprint up there, and I'm going to make a better one than I did 3 days ago. Are they inspired in their art, or did I don't know. This fascinates me. But anyway,
What do you think?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know, because I do believe, like you think of like Michelangelo, for instance, Sistine Chapel, and we think it's so sublime and divine. And he set out to do something so sublime and divine. He put a lot of practical jokes in there for the hell of it, because he was pissed off at somebody, and he hid in a little vestibule for 3 or 4 months, and they couldn't find him because he was in debt and all this kind of stuff. And you think that there's something sublime, so beautiful, and like you talked about Mozart. Mozart was so heavenly minded that he created this music of heaven, but he was a trickster and a jokester, and tried to bang a bunch of girls, and he wasn't sacred in his soul. He wasn't enlightened and enlarged and namaste. He wasn't any of this kind of. But what came through him is like you said, we would say it's divine, you
Yeah.
know. So it doesn't mean that the vessel ever needs to be divine or spiritual, or you have to be spiritually inclined. You have to be looking at something beyond. You have to be looking something more than like Netflix and whatever. You have to be questioning and contemplation. But it doesn't mean that you are enlightened. There's no concept in me that I'm some guru, and I have light to shower upon the blessings upon the multi. I don't have that at all. I'm just a guy that likes girls with heart-shaped asses, you know. And I managed to channel that into a real desire to understand what that concept of the feminine grace is, and the feminine essence, and by extension, what is the concept of beauty itself, which is my whole thesis. So,
And that's a through line of both books. Oh.
yeah, I kind of joke that I've got 3 books in me and I'm done, and it's all the same guy. Like, this first book I wrote was him talking to women. Hey, I'm gonna tell you some secrets, girls. You're gonna love this. And then the second book is him talking to men and say, you know what? What did I not say? I'm gonna tell you what I didn't say. Okay. And this is for you guys. Like, listen up, gather around, sort of something like that, in essence. And the third one is going to be the same guy again, and he's reflecting on the whole process, the whole journey. That's kind of what I've got going. And I've got the second and third book partly written, both of them. I just got to sit down and hammer them out.
Why do you think it's important that now this chap explains to men what's going on?
Because I really get the sense that men have never, even though the Alabaster Girl says it, it's men have never. I shouldn't say never. What I'm trying to do is to give men something that is fun and practical. I've written a lot of philosophy and a lot of, you know, abstraction around certain concepts that are fundamental to your belief system and who you are on this earth. I believe it 100%, which you need. You need that foundation, I think. But the practical side of like, here's a story that you're going to love and it's funny. Um, and I do that. I haven't really written that. I haven't really given to men um, a real jocular, fun, energetic, dirty conversation, which they need, which we all need. I do it in person. Like, you know, I'm not sitting here soul gazing at people that sit in my studio. You come here, we're gonna play the guitar, have a glass of wine, I'm gonna tell some jokes, and I'll tell you some stories that I wouldn't put on YouTube. Let's go. And we need that. And I'm the same way with women. Like with Deanna, I've been with Deanna for 11 years now. And our whole relationship is a celebration of jumping up in the middle and it's excitement. And like, what are we gonna do? Here we are, like it's not, I'm not this deep dive meaningful guy of staring into eyes and get I'm a celebratory energy and I like that. And so what I'm trying to, I just thought that when I've sat around private groups of men, and I've done it a lot, and I just say, okay, there's no cameras, there's nothing, let me tell you guys some stories. And the stories is where you learn, and the stories are fantastic and they're funny. And so I'm trying to capture that same kind of spirit and energy into a book. And I struggle with it too, because of some of the stories I can't really say because the people are still around, and you two and two together, you'd figure out what it was. But they're really instructive. I have no bone in me of an essay on how to be more authentic, for instance. To me, that I don't know what do I write there? There's enough of that out there, number one. Number two, I just don't have that in me. For me to talk about authenticity makes no sense. But for me to tell a story about this one time, and I'll tell you something, this is really interesting because I learned a lot from it. You guys are going to love this story, and you're going to learn something too. And I tell a story about a time with a girl or this, that back in the day, and I thought it was this and it was really that. The message of authenticity is implicit in the parable. So they get the fun story and they're engaged, and they get the life lesson, as opposed to stripping out that life lesson and making self-help.
And
The Alabaster Girl, yeah, the Alabaster Girl, I stripped out anything that reeked of self-help in any way.
yeah, you know what I
I didn't
find
want that.
really interesting, Zan, is that we take this for granted in children's books, right? Like I realize
Yeah,
the way that we remember kids' books and the ones that last the ages, right? The kids' books that we still have now that lasted the time are the ones that are not didactic about teaching
correct.
moral lessons. And Timmy was a bad boy because Timmy kicked the cat. It's never those ones. It's always the ones where there's a subtle message that penetrates
Yeah, that's a good
through
point.
just a normal story. But it's like we accept that to children and we prioritize that in the children's books. But for adults' books, we think it's okay to just write everything about self-help as do this, do that. And we don't see that it's crass and vulgar. And that's why we don't do it for kids, because it feels patronizing.
Yeah, I have a real, like I have a real quarrel with this modern age. When I was 20 years ago, when I was doing public speaking stuff, I used to say on stage, the number one genre of books in the world is romance novels. That's the biggest seller, that genre, because it was, and now it's self-help. And and I'm not against self-development and becoming more excellent and trying to train yourself and trying to learn more about your spirit and your consciousness and and the way you move through life and how to get a better attitude or any of these things. I'm not against self-development, but the self-help platitudes that we wrap ourselves in, I think it's all saying the same thing and it's all wrapped up. That's what I think. So I think that Jesus talked in parables. That's where he gave the lessons. He
Yeah.
didn't give essays on, okay, this is how you be more righteous. He said, here's, this man gave she gave what she had. She had two mites and she gave everything she had. This rich man, and he said these parables and you get the lessons from the parable. And And so for me, it's also storytelling is everything. So I'm trying to write a book that's storytelling
Yeah.
as opposed to didactic, like you said. I don't want to like, if I have a drop of that feeling in there, oh, hey, this is what you should do. It just, it doesn't, it's not, doesn't, I don't like it.
Yeah.
So the course I did, even the course I just did, this lecture series I did is called WWZD, cheekily saying WWZ, what would Zan do? So in other words, I sit with the guys and I say, okay, here's a situation, give me a situation. That's interesting. She said this, you said that, and it's been 3 weeks, and then this happened. Okay, this, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not coaching you. You do whatever you want. But what I would do with the information you gave me that I know right now, I would do this. I would say this to her, and then I would wait a day, and then I'd say this to her. And it's as accurate as I can get. So I don't coach. I just say, you know what I would do if I was you? Knowing what I know and all these years of experience, I would do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. It's
You
exactly
do what you want with that.
it's the only way you can coach, isn't it? It's really the only way we can coach is to say that. It's to say, I don't know the answers. I don't know the full context. I don't know your relationship with this person. I don't know what kind of day she was having. I don't know the nuances. But with the information that I have, knowing what I know,
Yeah,
limited, this is what I would do. Now you can
this is
take
what.
that or leave
Yeah,
it or modify it, but that's all I can give you at the moment, right?
that's my coaching. That's all I do, and I actually call it that. What would Zan do? I'm just kidding. That's it. My whole lecture series was, I'm not telling you what to do, and I say throughout, you know, maybe there's a better way to do it, but this is what I would do.
So
So,
www.wwzd.com.
well, I think it's probably gone, but
It's gone now, Zan. Um, cool, man. What's your take on men and the way that men have changed over the past 20 years? If you think they have, and if you do think they have, in what ways do you think men have changed, and by extension, masculinity has changed?
well, yeah, that's a good thing, because it has changed. I've been saying on stage for years, feel down into the sexual desire that you have. I say, you guys are horny guys. You watch a lot of porn, so you got to start to channel that into the spirit of your. You have to start to love that you're created that way and that you're that guy. Love your masculine edge, and like you don't apologize for it. It's not toxic, and don't listen to society and media and stuff like that. And everybody in the audience nods. And now I get the sense when I talk to an audience, especially young guys, they nod their head, yeah, 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 but they don't feel it. They don't feel that they're not horny guys. I'm generalizing. You know, something's in the water, the chemicals, the plastics we're ingesting. I don't know, but the testosterone level is measurably down from what it was 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years. And men just are not, they, they, they can't relate to what I'm saying in general because they're just not horny. They're not, they're not excited when they see a girl's ass walk by. They don't even notice it. And I'm like, something's changed in the water or something. I don't know, but it's real. And also the fear that men have in the West because the social political environment is so stacked against men that they're afraid to even approach women, say, on the street now. That used to be something everybody did in every history of culture that we've ever had, and now it's like, yeah, that's uninvited. And to say hello, what's your name? I'd like to buy you a coffee. Now that's I'm generalizing again, but so there's a real fear, and so men are retreating into this insular. When I gave a talk in Florida last fall, there was a real sense that men have lost hope. And I'm talking to the young guys in the crowd, and they're saying, "Yeah, but it's not that easy anymore because we can't do this, and we have to do Tinder, and nobody finds me on Tinder because I'm not in shape and whatever." And it's stacked against me, and so they give up. And I mean, that's why the West is inundated with this concept of suicides of young men and incels and school shootings. I mean, there's nowhere for men to turn. And so uh, there's no good messages for men. There's no good messages saying it's going to be okay and you're not toxic. And you know, and so I think that the combination of that beat down that they're getting from the time they're little boys to the very real chemical imbalance or something that's happening that everybody's, you know, um, something's happening and the testosterone is physically lower, measurably lower. I think something's broken. And you have to acknowledge it. I mean, like I can I can I can stand on a rooftop all day long and say, "Hey, man, let's come on, tap into your masculine edge," um, which is what I do. But and you know, some hear that call, but some guys maybe just can't relate to it. And but at the same time, I can't. I'm not a therapist. I'm not. I can't. I can't. You know, Sam, you tell me that you know you don't have a sex drive. I can't aid you. I can't. I don't know what to do. And I'm not going to shift into therapy and holding hands and saying it's okay and that's a new paradigm. I'm not going to do it. But maybe my audience is getting less connected to what I'm saying or something, or you know maybe mine is getting smaller.
Hmm.
It's interesting, man.
Certainly interesting. I I have seen some of this. Well, I've seen some of this as well. I have a lot of friends who are much younger than me, 21, 22, 23, and I notice the trends as well. And I notice
You do, man.
a marked a marked decrease in uh I don't even know if I would just say just sex drive, although I think that definitely is a symptom of it. But I think it's in um I don't know what it is. That radical. There's something radical, like something about like radically not wanting to be like everyone else, or not wanting to go with the system, or wanting to find the best woman they can find. You know, some sense of like
Yeah.
unbounded youthful naivete has gone, and we've sort of, as from what I see, it's maybe similar to yours or parallel to what you're describing, but it's like this kind of like bouncy energy of like you wanting to get out there and see this and reject this and do this has been replaced for a kind of quiet, conformist, peaceful nihilism. Right? That's more the way that I what I see on the surface, but it might all be symptoms of the same thing.
Man, I tell you, like when I was public speaking 20 years ago, and I'd go to Poland or I'd go to South Africa or something like that, everywhere you went, even the small towns, there was this guys had a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of hope because they would get together. They used to have these things called layers back in the day, right? And they'd have a weekly meeting, and I'd be a speaker there. And the guys were full of this joyous, wow, you know, there's answers for I'm lonely, I'm alone. I grew up, you know, with ones and zeros in my veins. I'm a computer guy, and these pickup artists come along, and they've got algorithms that I can follow. That makes sense to me. I have a lot of hope. I'm going to get my supermodel that they promised me on their website. You know what I mean? And you know they didn't get their supermodel, and none of it worked, and the algorithms were fell flat. Um, and that hope slowly went away. And in fact, there's no dating companies anymore, hardly. You know, like there's very few of us left from the old times. Like there's hardly anybody doing anything. Um, so um, so I think that glimmer of hope that maybe I can get my supermodel if I follow the steps and I pay, you know, this for this workshop, um, and it didn't materialize, and now they have nowhere to turn because all of a sudden you got 3 years of pandemic and you got 10 years of Tinder. So this young generation of men from 20 to 30, they've never analog met a woman in their life. They've never straightened their tie and went up to a girl and said, "Hey, what's your name?" And they're trying their best on Tinder, and it's stacked against them. And so men largely are giving up, or I think so. That's the impression again. I haven't been traveling a lot recently. I was in Cambridge and I was in Canada and I was in Croatia recently. So I guess I have been traveling, but um, it's the sense I'm getting, and maybe it's I'm not getting the full picture, but the sense I'm getting is that men are afraid and are giving up because it's stacked against them, and marriage is toxic now, and males are toxic, and you can't go. The West is stacked against them. Certainly, the family courts and the West is stacked against them. So, you know, anyway,
What about
I've
marriage?
tried.
What do you think about marriage? Because I mean, let me give that some context. Um, I think there's a felt sense of a lot of chaos in the world at the moment, at least
Yeah,
socio-politically, socio-culturally. There's a felt sense of like craziness, chaos, right? We feel like we're in a moment in history of chaos, and usually in moments of chaos, we've sought to find order to maybe balance it out, right? And when things are too ordered, we seek kind of chaos to get out of that, I guess. What do you think about marriage within that context? Do you
well,
think, yeah,
that's a good question because, like you said, when things are in chaos, there's a movement to try and find equilibrium again, but it isn't by the people that are in that created the chaos. It's their offspring. So you have after World War II, you have this can-do generation, and everybody can do it, and we saved the world, and it's in the West, right? And so they're all really excited, and then their children were the hippies. And the hippies rejected all that smooth, picket fence stuff, and they said we're burning all this stuff. They rejected it, and then the '80s, their parents were hippies, and the people in the '80s says, "No, we're consumers. We're going to be consumers." And they went into the consumer land and consumer culture and rejected the hippies. And it's always the generation that comes behind that rejects it. So we've got this generation now that is sucky and snowflakey and navel gazing and victims and self-medicated and over therapeuticized. And their children say, you know what? You left us debt. You left us no way to buy a house. We're going to fix it. So I think you're going to get a can-do generation again. And when I talk to these young people, like in Florida, for instance, a lot of these young men in Cambridge too. I was just in Cambridge at a Roger Scruton event. The young man, he's 21 years old, 22 years old. Several of them that I talked to are turning to organized religion. They're going back to, they find no meaning in this, and they're going back to, for instance, this guy was going to an Orthodox religion, and 3 or 4 guys in Florida independently told me, they're young 20-year-old guys, said, "Yeah, I'm studying the Orthodox religion right now because there's a movement to go back to it." So your question about marriage, I think there's going to be a movement back to reclaiming the sanctity of what marriage used to be as an antidote or as a pushback against all this ridiculous sociopolitical screaming and discord. I think so. I think it's going to center down again. And yeah, prediction for the future.
it's I tend to think the same way, but the only interesting, no, it's not pushback quite, but I remember very clearly when I was, how old would I have been? I would have been about 11, 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old. And I think it was around the time, maybe 13, it was around the time of the aftermath of the Iraq War. So maybe I was 12 or 13 or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But it was after the
Yep.
Iraq War. And I remember finding out at that age, there or thereabouts, I remember finding out that they had lied about Iraq, about the knowledge that Iraq had weapons of mass destructions, right? And I just read this article and I was so fucking angry. I just remember
Yes.
at that age hearing that and having been lied to and knowing that my dad's decisions and friends, everything was based on a lie of a few people to get their own way. Like,
Yeah.
how dare they? I remember feeling that so intensely at such a young age and, just almost
Oh,
losing my mind for a couple of days. So I was just like, how can this be possible? I thought these people were meant to be looking after us. How can they lie
you
about
could
this?
listen to them. You could trust them.
Yeah,
You thought
yeah,
you could.
yeah, yeah. At least that's what they're there for. That's their responsibility. That's their duty, right? Like my parents' duty was to look after me. Their duty is to look after us. And I was really angry about it. But
Oh,
I remember self categorizing. I would never say it, but I remember self categorizing myself as on the far left, right, politically, because I
yes.
hated the right wing idea that they were all,
Warmongering, yeah,
yeah, they used to be
exactly.
warmongering, authoritarian, liars, simple-minded,
Yeah,
closed-minded. It was Fox News, and I remember seeing some of these people growing up and just
hurt
being,
feeling.
this is pathetic, right? These people and their ideas, and they're trying to control stuff, and they're fascist, right? And I remember feeling that, right? And now I
Hmm.
think about myself, and I would never say I'm on the left or the right. I don't care about politics, right? I don't care about politics. I find it uninteresting. But I know that if someone were to place me, they'd place me right of center now. And I haven't changed. I still
Right.
hate authoritarianism. I still hate
Yeah.
people trying to lie to you to get their own ways. I still hate concentration of power in the hands of people that I don't trust or I don't think have your, all of the same things are true of me, but yet I've moved from the far left to center right. That's not me that's changed, right? So I just thought it was interesting, right? That maybe there's something going on and it's not just the next generation changing. It's like our
Really
time,
tired. Yeah.
yeah, our time is on a treadmill, right? And it's just sped up, and suddenly the bell curve's just changed, and we've all found ourselves in a different part of it. What do you think?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I completely agree with you. I mean, like, I'm conservative with a small c in that I believe in traditions like Mozart are
Hmm.
good to hand down to children, you know,
Yeah,
and are in institutions and stuff like that. I'm conservative in that mode where to preserve what the greatness of the people that came before, the scientists and the artists and stuff like that, and to hand it down as a legacy to future generation. And a very progressive energy is to destroy all that and rip it out. And, so I'm very conservative in that mode. And I'm conservative when it comes to the concept of a family, for instance. I believe I believe in families, and families are under attack. Um, but at the same time, there's things that I'm not that I wouldn't align with that the right would say. I don't get into politics, but
yeah,
there's things that I'm thinking, okay, that I don't agree with that, or that doesn't bother me, sort of thing, right? So I'm center. If anybody would really pin me down, as far as I know, maybe center right, like you said, because I believe in traditions and I believe in uh, bringing down, and I believe in the concept of home and community. We used to have this concept of of duty, duty
yeah.
to your family, duty to your community, duty to your country, and now it's about rights, my rights, and what about me, and I'm entitled, and it's all individualized, and the individual is shot up to the top, and I don't buy into that at all.
Mm.
you know it's all look at me, and and attend to me, because I'm the only thing that matters. Even art, like, I mean, you look at art, it used to be about the art. You'd see art that moves you, and it was painted by so and so, for instance. Now it's all about the artist. The artist is front and center. Look what I can do. I can cut a cow and chop it up and make it art. I can make anything art. I can look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And same with architecture. You look at London, then they stick these conglomerate buildings in the middle, and there's no harmony with the background. It's just look what I can do, and look what a statement I can. My individual statement is going to stomp on the center of London, and you all have to suck it up. And so I'm conservative when it comes to this kind of thing. So, um, and I think that there's like guys like you that didn't move are going, wait a minute, that's you haven't changed, and the silent majority hasn't changed. It's just the screeching voices on both sides, the left and the right, and they're screeching loud, man, and that's all you hear. So if you watch any kind of news or do any doom scrolling, that's all you're going to see, um, because there's no good messages. And even the relationship messages are angry, or like, you better, men are toxic, and you better, that message, you better be sensitive, you better be a feminist if you're a man. What the, you know women carved out their own identity for the first time in centuries in history, that we're going to call ourselves feminists and have something that women own and contain, and men go, wait a minute, I'm a feminist too. So now they're stepping into what the heck. So you're either that sensitive, nice guy who's all completely feminized, or it goes into the real strong men going their own way type of angry energy, like take back the power from women, to stomp on it. So
So yeah, it's tough, isn't it? You said there's no good messages for men, and it's an odd one because there's almost like there's a way of looking at that just naturally, like, oh, okay, yeah, we live in a weird time, it's chaos, and so there's no really like balanced, like wholesome, intelligent men that are stepping forwards, and we just don't hear those voices. But there's also an argument to be made that every time one of them does come along, maybe he's torn down to some extent, and maybe they're
correct.
not always the most wholesome or balanced voices when they enter the stage. I mean, there's arguments on both sides, on all sides, with people like Tate and even Peterson and X, Y, and Z, Russell Brand more recently, you know. But it
Yes.
does seem like every time a voice does come along, a strong voice, let's say,
Yes.
it literally is torn down, and literally torn in the very literal sense of the word, ripped from the very platforms that upholstered it. You know,
That's
literally torn down from the platform in a visceral sense.
yeah. Nobody's safe from it because it's the madness of crowds, and the madness of the toxic mob. And I, I mean, you look at any of these guys that get any kind of traction at all, and they're trying to give a message, and they're stomped on, and they're cut down, and they're demonetized, and they are, they lose their livelihood, they lose their ability to the places that they're trying to have the conversation. You look at Jordan Peterson; he has a beautiful message to young men of, take responsibility, clean your room, take responsibility, don't be a victim, do this beautiful self small steps, and it galvanized millions of young men, right? But Jordan Peterson is massively attacked, and by you stick your head above the parapet, people are going to shoot at you, and massively attacked, and it affects his health. You can't win against that destructive, pitchfork mob. You can't win. So my whole thing, fairly or not, and I've been criticized for it, is you'll never see me in 20 years ever talk about feminism, politics, uh, pornography. I don't say anything ever, ever. And it's not because I'm rose-colored glasses and oh, those things don't exist. Ha 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 ha. Let's skip along. I get it, but there's enough voices talking about all those things, and you can't win. If you wade into the swamp, you get Jordan Peterson, you get attacked, and it destroys your health. And so my whole philosophy, and I've been criticized for it, is to not go into this crusade and this battle and overtop, say my voice louder than all the feminists and all the, but to go around it and talk about whatsoever things are beautiful, think on these things, where can we go as men, and let's ignore those voices and not try and example is somebody was telling me, how come I've been in conferences and speaking events where there's like a bunch of speakers, and they set up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon a panel of the speakers for a speakers panel. You've seen that, right? There's like 6 of us up there, 7. I hide in my hotel room like you can't imagine when it's time, and they're all looking for me. And I'm not, because I'm not don't have a drop in me to sit on a panel. I guess sometimes I'm stuck on them, and you see me on a panel, I'm silent. I'm not going to override those voices and say, well, wait a minute, I agree with what you're saying, but here's another. I just don't have it in me to have that argument, that fight, or to try and get my voice stuck in there somewhere. So, and I don't have it socially either. Like we want to have a different conversation about it, about an excellent way forward, as opposed to, in other words, concentrating on the positive and where we can go as men, as opposed to the enemies we've got to fight.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a kind of interesting comparison, because it's very interesting what you said. I think about it sometimes like, why is everyone so pissed off when really good actors or singers start voicing their political opinions?
Yeah.
I think it's because it's an inferiority complex on the part of the actors. It's like an imposter syndrome, where they think, even with their immense talent, right? Someone like Leonardo
Yeah.
DiCaprio, with his incredible talent, and it is talent, right? You can
Sure.
completely lose yourself in the world that he's portraying as that actor. We think, come on, you're offering enough. This is your area. You're a genius actor. You create this world. You don't need to get into politics. You're enough without that, right? Because a lot of people look at him and like people like that, certain actors and celebrities, and they see their value. We see their value, but it's almost like they don't see their value, and they think if they're not supporting this popular cause,
Yeah.
then they don't actually have any value. They're not contributing anything. And I think the public
Um,
recognizes, and they find it ugly to see that inferiority complex from someone they admire, and it almost just denigrates it tears down the beauty of what they and the purity of their own offering, right? Their own contribution.
yeah, so I don't have it in me at all. I want to write about and talk about and live my life in a celebration of gratitude. I want to sit in
Yeah.
gratitude. I hang out with Deanna. We have a glass of wine. We visit each other. We have a real joyous coming together feel in my relationship and with all my friends. And I just do not have it in me to go out there and try and override those the voices. It's just not in me or explain anything. I wrote in my book, never defend, never explain. People attack, but I say, okay, I can live with that. I'm not going to try and explain it to you no, 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 dude. You got me wrong. What I really mean is you're missing the point. What I mean is that I would never say that ever. Just let them think it. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Have your misconception. I don't really care. I want to hang over here where the light is nicer and hang out with my girl on the balcony with a glass of wine. That's something to do.
Where do you think you lie on the? I mean, maybe it's a oversimplification in the first place. But where do you think you lie on the introversion extroversion scales, Anne?
Oh, yeah, because somebody just told me this the other day. They said, man, I'm kind of both. Like I like cities and I like the energy of the cities, but I'm in my studio here in the center of Bucharest, dead center. And if I spilled out into the street, it's filled with girls everywhere because I'm near the university. And the energy of it is like fluttering in the air, and there's coffee shops and little things happening, all little stores that never close and this kind of stuff. But in my studio here, it's silent like the grave. And I sit in here sometimes for 3 days. I don't move. I sit in my rocking chair with my books and I don't leave. And so I don't need to recharge. I don't have that feeling like, man, I've been around all these people, I need to recharge. But I do like to sit and contemplate a lot. So I really think that I'm right down the center of both. Maybe somebody would have a better idea of that because I like to be alone a lot. I like it. I'm in my studio right now. It's 9 o'clock at night here. My apartment that I share with Deanna that we own is a 5 minute walk from here. But I'm going to be on another call after this one, and I'm going to sleep here in my studio tonight. And a lot of times I sleep here, and I text my sweetie, I miss you. I could walk 5 minutes, but I'm in a work mode of sitting in the energy of me sitting in the studio that's conducive to my thought process and my contemplation. And she's working on her art and her projects and stuff like that. And so I'm very much alone a lot by choice. Strange, but I love it.
It's hard. I know what you mean. Kind of hard to place, isn't it? Maybe it is an oversimplification because I think you can have an outward seeking energy or an outward seeking temperament, right? Looking for joy outside and trying to latch
Yeah,
on to new things, but also, like the hunter gatherer in one. It's like you've got the outward energy, but then you've got the hibernation and the
sure.
consolidation, kind of like going out and gathering resources from the world and then using those resources and creating the home in your mind and consolidating them. So maybe it's something of that, right? Like
Yeah, for sure. It's a combination. I would say I'm a combination for sure.
cool. Well,
I,
Zan,
because I'm
where
never bored, and I'm
never
never if I'm alone, I'm never bored. I'm good. Give me some books and my rocket chair. Even in my rocket chair, I was sitting if I have to. I got guitars.
I
I'm good.
miss the guitar, man. I miss my guitar. I gotta go buy a new one. I haven't played in ages. I love it as well. It's just the best thing. Sometimes you don't know what you want, and then you remember that there's a guitar, and it's such an easy way to become instantly creative, to just start
Correct. Yeah.
doing music, right? You're not playing a song, you're just putting notes together and getting on. It's yeah, it's an incredibly important like retreat that you can have in your own space if you know have access to it. So I miss that actually. Zan, I'm aware of your time, man. You said you've got a call coming up.
Yeah, that's okay. I
So
pushed it off a bit.
yeah, I mean, I guess I'd just like to clear. We if you've got like 5 more minutes, that would be,
No problem.
or
Yeah, I'm
even
with you, man.
3 minutes. Whenever you're ready, just say I got to go and go. I just want to kind of tie up the thing about men because I think that is really, I know for
Okay.
me, that's why I like the idea that you're still about. Um, and I don't. That sounds ridiculous. What I mean is like there's certain people, and for a lot of people, David Attenborough signifies like someone that once he dies, they feel like David Attenborough going away. They've lost something, like one of the last kind of someone who keeps the world sane or something. You know, there's some
I
sense that
understand
he's
that.
an important figure to them. And
Yes.
I was thinking for you, maybe your voice isn't as loud as someone like David Attenborough's, but I think for right now, it does have a sort of antidote
Hmm.
type of flavor or a tone of an antidote to much of what's going on, like non-political, not involved with all of this, not extreme, just um, focused on beauty and things like that. And I want to know like what you think is the solution to the lack of voices we have now. Like how can we
Yeah.
as let's say influencers in the small eye, like having some level of influence,
Yeah.
how can we actually create a good message for men today?
Well, I think, yeah, I have a lot of hope and a lot of faith. I really do. I'm very hopeful for the future. I like technology. I like AI that's coming down the pipe. I'm not the doom and gloom type that thinks it's going to destroy us, and it might. But if it's going to destroy the world, I wouldn't want to be part of it. But I'm very optimistic for this, and I'm optimistic for men because there's voices like you, and we're small voices, but we have impact. And 2 or 3 people hear something from you, and they say something to 2 or 3 other people. I really do think that I mean the world is smaller than we think, and I think that if we just keep saying what we're saying, share it as wide and as far as we can. That's why I want to put my series on YouTube and not make it into a course. you know, um, say it as widely and brightly and with as much enthusiasm and affection for it as we can, and trust it. And um, I just like I said, I just really think that there is good messages. I keep saying and generalizing that there's no good message for men, but there is good messages for men. They're just not widespread. And if we continue their conversations that we're having, these kind of conversations, and self-reflection on each other and learning from each other like we do, others will camp into that. We'll discover that, and the right ones will come. So I don't have any despair in me at all, like not a drop, or worried about the future, or worried about the world events. And the world events are insane right now. It's not because I'm like la la land and skipping around plucking the daisies. I feel what's going around all around, and it's intense. But at the same time, I really believe in that even a small voice can really make a change. So just stay dedicated to it, trust it, give your best into the world, and then we die. And then what else is there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thank you, man.
and I'm
I really appreciate
yeah.
you coming on and sharing everything as always. It's the third year running, I think that we've done one of these, and that
Oh,
wasn't,
really?
but it always it always seems to happen that way. I think it's been pretty regular intervals as well. But I always enjoy talking to you a lot, Zan.
Appreciate that, Sam. I'm not I spend a lot of time in my studio in my rocking chair, and I'm living a contemplative phase of my life for certain, and I'm writing and I'm reading a lot, but I'm not retiring. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
You know, like as long as I have a voice, as long as I can, uh, keep talking, I'm going to keep talking and share what I've learned in all my years, etc. But there's no sense of me retiring. I'm going to be 60 this year, man, in 2 months. It's coming up, man. But I don't think, oh, okay, I'm getting old and that's terrible. I feel young. I don't feel any different than when I was 20 or 30. But I also have the sense in me that, man, I've seen a lot of things and I've done a lot of things, and I said I created a path that I can look back and go, wait a minute, that's kind of cool. And because I didn't rest and I went and took risks and I left the corporate world and all that, people know my story, right? Um, and I can sit in a serenity and the gratitude and sublimity of sitting here and not have to be trying to rush and explain and do all this, get the word out sort of thing, and trust that it is going out there through me, through you, through others that come in contact with us. I had two guys in my studio last night for 5 hours. American guys that happened to be in Bucharest, 21 years old, 27 years old, full of fire, full of energy, love this work that we're trying to create. And they came here and they're full of ideas. And I had a blast talking to these young guys. The world's, the future's in good hands with his voices. So that's how I see it.
nice positivity, man. I love it. That's what we need. Zan, thanks so much, man. And
Yeah.
yeah, I look forward to coming back to Bucharest. Every time I talk to you, I'm reminded of like just my memories of Bucharest and just loving the city when I have been there. So yeah, I hopefully will try and get over there at some point this year, and maybe we can do something when I do. And until then, man, keep talking about what you love, because I think what you love is
Yeah,
also
that's perfect.
the greatest contribution, man, to the world. So I really appreciate it, man, and thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Sam.
Cheers. Bye bye.